We are seeing an increase in COVID spiking, it seems, ahead of this weekend. I don't know what you think next week's going to look like. Before we even get to the booster issue, what do you tell families to do, not to do? How do you even think about this? Because you also now have so many people who've had it and then others who haven't, and it's sort of hard to figure out how to think about it.
Well, look, the risk has definitely come down in terms of just prevalence being lower all around the country, and especially for people who've been recently boosted. I think they're reasonably well protected. And a lot of people have had this Omicron infection as well. They're recently recovered and going to have a high degree of protection from subsequent infection. In places where B4 and B5 are spreading right now, they're spreading primarily in a population that has been vaccinated. They're also able to pierce the immunity that people have acquired from prior B1 infections. So that includes parts of the Southwest, Southern California, like San Diego, and the Pacific Northwest. Those are the places we're seeing the highest incidence of B4 and B5. So those are going to continue to spread. They're spreading primarily in people who already have some pre-existing immunity, and they seem to be able to pierce the immunity acquired from B1. For people with a recently recovered B2 infection, they do appear to have better immunity against B4 and B5. And in fact, the countries that had big waves of B2, like South Africa, haven't seen big waves of B4, B5. In the Northeast, where we are right now, cases are going up. So if you look at New York, New Jersey, Connecticut over the last 14 days, cases are up about 5 to 10%. But they're up off a low baseline, and prevalence is largely low in the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, places that had big B2 waves.
For folks who've had it in the past couple of months, how much time do you think that they really have? Meaning, I think there's a view that if you've had it, maybe you have 2 or 3 months, 4 months, do you? Or does it really depend on which variant you had? And a lot of people don't know which variant they had.
Yeah, look, it depends on which variant you have, but I think if you recently recovered from an Omicron infection, you can have a reasonable degree of confidence that you have several months of immunity. The immunity is not as durable from this infection as it was from prior variants. So people, for example, who were infected with Delta seem to have a more durable immunity than people who've been infected with Omicron. And also, as you noted, people who were infected with the B1 variant, so people who were infected early on in the course of this Omicron wave, they probably had B1. They seem to be less well protected against B4, B5. It does appear that B4, B5, which is the variant that's now spreading in parts of the country and people believe will become epidemic by the fall, that evolved from B2.
Right. So let's talk about the vaccine, and let's talk about the vaccine come fall, because what we all want is a vaccine that would protect us effectively against infection if possible. The vaccine, as far as I understand, is based on B1, B2, not B4, B5. Therefore, what type of protection do you think people will really have?
Well, look, the vaccines are going to be reformulated now. So the direction from CDC and from FDA, for that matter, to the vaccine manufacturers does appear to be that they want the manufacturers to reformulate a new vaccine based on B4, even though the manufacturers have prepped a vaccine, a bivalent vaccine that was based on the old ancestral strain and a combination of B1, on the presumption that that newer vaccine based on B4 is going to protect better against B4, B5 heading into the fall. Recency does matter, so we need to ask the question whether or not we're going to be too late with these reformulated B4-based vaccines to really get ahead of the wave of B4 that we're likely to see in the late summer in the South and probably early fall in the rest of the country. The old vaccine does provide some protection against B4 based on our assumptions, not as good. Probably the bivalent vaccine would have been better, and hopefully a B4-based vaccine will be even superior to that. But recency matters, and if you're, for example, a 75-year-old and it's August and you're 6 or 7 months out from your last booster, what do? Do you wait until October or November until you can get the B4 vaccine, or do you go out and get a booster of the wild type? I think they need to provide guidance to that individual, because you don't want that individual heading into a wave of infection in this fall without any opportunity to get boosted.